of Los Angeles. He's a former managing attorney, famously at the law offices of Johnny L. Cochran, where he worked for over 11 years before starting his own practice, and probably best known for his successful work as coordinator of O.J. Simpson's criminal defense team. Attorney Carl Douglas, welcome.
Dom, it's always a pleasure to be a guest on your show, and thank you once again for having me on today.
Well, thank you for coming on. Um, the I think a lot of us, well, certainly social media, but for me personally, my personal circle, really traumatized and saddened by the execution last night of Marcellus Williams. And even though it had been appealed and appealed and appealed all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, no stay, not even a temporary stay to look at this evidence. Can you explain what happened and how unusual or not unusual this is?
Well, Dom, 55-year-old Marcellus Williams was convicted in 2001 for the 1998 death of a journalist, Felicia Gale. His conviction was appealed, and it became a cause for many activists because there were very disturbing aspects of the underlying case. One of the witnesses recanted their testimony. The prosecutor's office, who was involved with prosecuting, joined his defense lawyers asking the former governor to overturn the conviction. There was the former governor who was, in fact, granting a reprieve, and he formed a commission to investigate the circumstances of the underlying conviction. When the present governor, Mike Parsons, who Dr. Abdullah talked about, was elected governor, he disbanded the commission. He basically cut down all of the appeals, and he essentially signed the death warrant that was executed last night when Mr. Williams was executed by lethal injection.
How rare is it for a prosecutor to join in that kind of a request?
It is so rare and unique, Dom, that I can only remember a couple of times in my 45-year history of prosecutors joining the defense and petitioning the judge to spare someone's life. There were troubling issues with the selection of the jury. Prosecutors conceded that race was, in fact, one of the factors going into excluding certain jurors. There was, at one time, a reexamination of the knife that was found to be the murder weapon, and there was DNA of a former prosecutor and an investigator that was found on the knife, which really put into question the integrity of the evidence that was offered against Mr. Williams. So it's regrettable that the governor, in this case, ignored that evidence and simply said, it's been long enough, let's get this done and move forward.
And that DNA on the knife indicates that they fudged the investigation because it means they were handling evidence with no gloves or anything like that, right?
It means that there was a fundamental breakdown in maintaining the integrity of vital pieces of evidence. Not one, but two members of the law enforcement team apparently handled that knife without gloves and compromised the integrity of the evidence, which should have called into question the entire scope of the prosecution.
Mm-hmm. And yet, I mean, at that case, in that point, when you've appealed something all the way to the state Supreme Court, the only person that could have saved Marcellus Williams was the governor, right? Even the president of the United States could not stop that execution.
The lawyers for Mr. Williams tried to petition to the Supreme Court to basically stop the execution while they continued to explore these legal issues. The Supreme Court denied that request. The governor then was the last-ditch effort in a political environment that we find ourselves in, with Missouri being a very conservative state, it's regrettable that politics, I think, weighed in favor of the governor's decisions in this case.
Yeah, I was reading about these state attorneys general, on the Republican side, that have been creating an association and really pushing, not just with these kinds of cases, but political cases, to move their entire legal and policy portfolio of entire states to the conservative side. And I'm not sure if this particular attorney general was part of that movement, but we do know it's a Republican governor, and we do know that was the Republican appointees on the U.S. Supreme Court who rejected even a temporary pause to see what had gone on here.
Dom, that is why your listeners have such a great advantage of listening to your show, because your insight and research is spot on. With new attorney generals joining Governor Parsons recently, they basically shut down the efforts of the former attorney general, who was at least willing to examine the legal issues and the DNA issues that were triggered. So you are right. With this new wave, there was entirely a conservative bent that was put on this case, and the political implications, regrettably, took precedence over the concerns of a possibly executing an innocent man. It's so important, Dom, because since 1973, there have been over 200 people who have been sentenced to death in this country who were later exonerated and found not to have been responsible for the crimes to which they were executed, which really shows and points to the finality of executions. The legal system is filled with human beings who make human mistakes. So it's so tragic that this example is now reminding us again of how far we have to go to get full justice for all Americans.
Yeah, I just looked it up. The organization is called RAGA, rhymes with MAGA, Republican Attorney Generals Association. And the Missouri Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, is actually part of this group, which has been coordinating to defeat things like, your choice over a woman's body, marriage equality, et cetera, et cetera. They have an association that's under MAGA, it's RAGA, and they are organized. So interesting that this man is part of that movement. We're talking with attorney Carl Douglas. When we come forward, I want to look at, drawing some lines to how this impacts how we look at the national elections, how we look at local elections, and some of the choices that we have before us in the state of California and across the nation. This sort of backlash to progressive DAs and justice reform measures that voters raised up during 2020 and the aftermath thereof. You're welcome to call me, 800-920-1580. This is Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, today.
Always night pads are designed for a perfect night's sleep, so you can do your bear hugging a pillow thing, your free falling starfish thing, your burritoed in a blanket with the AC blasting thing. While Always night pads with rapid dry do their we've got your back with fast absorbency and up to 10 hours of protection thing. So while your period's doing its own thing, Always lets you do your sleep thing. Shop for all ways in-store or online, wherever you get your pads.
Okay, everyone, what did you think of the chocolate bar?
It's too chewy.
Feels kind of chalky.
Too much nougat.
I need to go brush my teeth.
Business is booming for Steph's small marketing research firm.
After all these focus groups, there's only one conclusion. I need more researchers.
And she's way too busy researching
Does this have peanuts?
to waste time researching resumes.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Put our matching platform to work so you can spend less time searching and more time connecting with talented candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
I appreciate you waking up with us, and we are talking with attorney Carl Douglas, who was part of the renowned Dream Team with the late Johnny Cochran in defense of O.J. Simpson, but is also in private practice, Douglas Hicks Law, right now, today. And before I launch into this, what I queued up, Molly Bell asks, as a defense attorney, do you have any questions about having a prosecutor as president? Can you calm the fears and concerns of those who hate on Vice President Kamala Harris for her positions? I assume she means as Attorney General and District Attorney.
You know, Dom, I say elections are not a referendum. Elections are a choice. And when the choice is Kamala Harris, even with her prosecutorial background, versus Donald Trump, a convicted felon, a convicted sexual assault defendant, that choice is clear. I am not wholly supportive of every position that Kamala Harris has taken in the past, but I am resolute in my intention to do everything in my power to elect her as president, because the choice between her presidency and that of the former president, it cannot be more stark. It is so cliche, but I do agree this is one of the most important elections in our lifetime, and I urge every one of your listeners to go to the polls on November the 5th and to vote in favor of Kamala Harris for president.
Mm-hmm. So we are in a kind of a backlash, right, at the moment, where I'm hearing the rhetoric that I heard in the 90s, this law and order, crime is out of control, I fear for my safety and my community. I'm hearing stuff that's giving me throwback 90s vibes, and that's certainly what Proposition 36 on the California ballot for November is. It is about removing the criminal justice reform that was made through Proposition 47 and reinstating more of a 3 strikes era criminal code. Agree, disagree, thoughts?
Proposition 36 is a dangerous effort by conservatives in California to take us backwards. In 2014, the voters of this great state thought it was reasonable under Prop 47 to reduce the prison population, to reduce the mass incarceration of Black and brown, poor people predominantly. And they passed common sense laws reducing those drug possession or petty theft crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. With the rash and the publicity of these break-ins where groups of people will go together to jewelry stores we've seen in San Francisco or Beverly Hills, conservatives have taken a knee-jerk response and simply want to increase the penalties for previously minor crimes, and which would result in increasing the prison population in the state. This is a thing that we cannot return back to. Prop 36 would increase penalties for what are misdemeanors. They would make it difficult for someone who's had 2 prior petty theft convictions. If they would receive a third, they would then be sent to prisons. It would limit drug programs that have been in place to shift the focus from incarceration to drug treatment, all in a reactionary reaction to the sense of the time. You know, Dom, if someone says something enough times, people will believe it. You hear thoughts about how bad prices are these days, although stocks and everything are at its highest, although interest rates are being reduced. You hear all of this about how crime is running rampant when in actuality, crime has been reduced from recent years, and in many violent crimes, they are at historically low levels. So I urge all of your listeners to do your own research, and you'll be convinced, as am I, that Prop 36 is a wrong bill for the state and should be roundly defeated.
Well, and of course, one of the reasons I bring this up is because I think we do get into this reactionary phase. We're looking at the smash and grabs on the news and somebody hijacking a metro bus, and we start to repeat, oh, I don't feel safe, I don't feel safe. Oh, we've been saying, at least since I've been on the radio, our society's going to hell in a handbasket. It's never been this bad. And we say it year after year after year, so we do convince ourselves. But in cycles, elected officials pick up on that, and they come with this law and order rhetoric, which makes people think, if I vote for more cops, if I vote for longer prison sentences, if I vote for harsher penalties, then I will be safer. Even though we've never found that makes us safer in the past. I think one of the things that I consistently hear, Attorney Douglas, is that now, under Prop 47, under a progressive district attorney, no one's going to jail, that criminals are just being let out to prey on unsuspecting people, and that's the result of these progressive policies.
There has been, I think, fortunately, a shift in thinking in California and other progressive states. Simply locking people up destroys families, destroys communities, and does not make people safer. Those that have bought into those fear tactics, really that seek to divide us as a people, that seek to draw lines based on class or on race, should be rejected. We are learning as a community that people are not made safer when you simply put more people in jail. Communities are not made safer when great swaths of their population are incarcerated, because at some point they have to return to the community and be part of a positive workforce. So we regrettably have been balkanized, Dom, and using fear and these other tactics to drive us into our own little silos where we listen only to those that speak just like us. And regrettably, there is not the communication necessary for true progressive reform.
Is it your experience as an attorney, though, that people are just doing crimes and not going to jail, or that everyone's being let out of prison at the moment under Prop 47 or our current DA, that folks are just getting off without punishment?
No, black and brown people are being convicted every day in the courtrooms of Los Angeles, are being sent to jail. Those that commit violent crimes against our citizens fairly must be removed, and that is happening every day. But instead of focusing on nonviolent or drug-related offenses to fill our prisons, I think there is a proper move that only violent criminals are those that we should focus on most often, and there should be a reexamination of the proper role of law enforcement, particularly when dealing with crimes involving transportation or traffic cases, crimes involving homelessness, or crimes involving drugs and drug addiction. There should be other thoughts and other approaches dealing with those kinds of crimes so that law enforcement can be focused on violent crimes that impact communities.
Do you think we're getting the message? I feel like this backlash, it's not just in LA, it's all over the nation. Feels like a throwback to, these days when we really did try to incarcerate and suppress our way out of problems in our community.
Regrettably, the focus of much of our political conversation has been focused on the negative, how terrible the country is, how everything is going to pot. And that is simply a strategy to use fear-mongering so that we can return to our base instincts. I encourage all of your listeners to reject that approach, to remain hopeful, and to look toward the future, because I do think there are more positives ahead than all of this negativity that we find ourselves being bombarded with on the airwaves today. That's why a program like yours is so important, so that it can provide another perspective for your listeners to consider when they make choices about their lives and about their politics in the future.
Yeah, a lot of us woke up this morning and certainly went to sleep last night feeling very traumatized by the execution of Marcellus Williams, and also known as Imam Khalifa, which one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you about the death penalty, because I think part of it is in the context, this political context of law and order, and this false narrative that criminals are just doing crime and being let right out. People can smash and grab, and it's not a problem that we need to reverse Proposition 47. I remember when we passed Prop 47, it was like a week or 2 weeks later that law enforcement groups started saying crime is up, when there's no possible way they could have had that data that quickly, when they were just creating a narrative based on a law that they did not like. And again, with Prop 36, you see all of these police associations on board with this, which will make some folks think it's safer. I want to, after news, traffic, and sports here, I want to connect the dots with Marcellus Williams, the death penalty, and our local politics. I think the district attorney's race is one place where we are seeing this play out. Whether or not a DA decides to bring death penalty in a case is significant, and that is part of the portfolio of many progressive prosecutors, is moving away from that. DA George Gascon in LA County is no exception. He has said that he will not seek the death penalty in these cases. Doesn't mean people don't have consequences. It just means no state executions. Want to talk with attorney Carl Douglas about how that plays out here locally as well as nationally. And we're taking your phone calls as always when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Good morning. It's the 25th day of September. I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A U.S. Navy ship has been damaged while operating in the Middle East. A Navy official confirmed the USNS Bighorn was damaged late Monday night after it refueled and replenished other American ships, including the USS Abraham Lincoln and several guided missile destroyers. The leader of a Haitian nonprofit is filing criminal charges against Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance. The complaint filed using Ohio law allows private citizens to bring charges. Was filed after both Trump and Vance made claims about Haitian immigrants eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America N.A. Copyright 2024.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The San Diego Padres beat the Dodgers 4-2 in the first game of a critical three-game series at Dodger Stadium. The Padres ended the game with a triple play in the bottom of the ninth. The win clinched a playoff spot for the Padres and left them only 2 games behind the Dodgers in the NL West. The LA Sparks fired coach Kurt Miller. Miller was 25-55 in 2 seasons with the Sparks. Magic Johnson, a part owner of the WNBA franchise, said last week there would be changes. Hey, Clippers fans, I know it's a little early for some bad news, but you need to hear this. Kawhi Leonard is still having inflammation issues with his right knee. The Clippers announced Tuesday that Kawhi will not participate in drills or practices in training camp. Camp opens Monday at the team's new practice facility at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. More on this troubling news about Kawhi later today. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you coughing a lot, especially at night? Are you often short of breath? Are you using your rescue inhaler often? These could be signs that your asthma is not under control. To keep your asthma in check and help prevent an asthma attack, ask your healthcare provider for an asthma action plan. This is a personalized plan you create with your doctor that shows you what to do and what medicines to help control your asthma and to use when you're having a hard time breathing or when you're having an asthma attack. Please don't wait until you're having an asthma attack. Do something about it now. Schedule a visit with your healthcare provider today to make that action plan and take control of your asthma. For more tips and resources on the management of asthma, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
Sweet chocolate reward. Sweet chocolate reward.
This is not just the sound of someone picking up a sweet treat at Walgreens. This is the sound of someone picking up a sweet treat right after receiving all their vaccines in one trip. This is the sound of treating yourself, because you protected yourself.
Stop by or schedule both your flu and COVID-19 vaccines today and grab yourself a sweet treat while you're at it. Vaccine subject to availability. State, age, and health-related restrictions may apply.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do...
Let's play something, Grandma.
...became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks Vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors.
Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler? Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number Limited Edition Smart Bed. Limited time. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? Didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are talking with attorney Carl Douglas. He's in private practice these days at Douglas Hicks Law in Los Angeles and handling many a case, even though you may know him from his time at the Cochran firm working with the legendary Johnny Cochran and part of the dream team around O.J. Simpson's defense. Certainly he has defended many an individual since that time. And I know, Attorney Douglas, we've talked about this before. You've seen the ebb and flow politically, and you always say that change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. That said, it seems like we are experiencing a backlash. And when we speak of the death penalty, we have that playing out in our district attorney's race, where incumbent George Gascon is being challenged by Nathan Hochman, who ran for Attorney General as a Republican and lost to Rob Bonta, is now identified as an independent. But polling seems to show that right now he appears to be beating the incumbent, the progressive DA George Gascon, who has taken this position against the death penalty. What do you make of that?
I think that people are only now starting to pay attention to the elections in November. And I'm hopeful that as they focus more on the issues in this case, they'll understand that George Gascon is trying to do exactly what he was elected to do. He's trying to change the tenor of law enforcement in the United States. He's trying to end the mass incarceration of Black and brown people. And he's doing it against a windfall of opposition, not only in some portions of the community, but in his own office. He is encountering the same backlash that progressive prosecutors in Philadelphia, Larry Krasner in Oakland, my colleague Pamela Price, Chase Boudin in San Francisco have also encountered. But I am hopeful that when people focus on his real policies and how he is trying to make the community better for all Angelenos, they will understand and recognize that he should continue the job that he started 4 years ago and be reelected.
I see this a lot on social media. People feel like, because DA Gascon does not support the death penalty, which is what we, the voters of LA County, agreed on, that means he's just letting criminals run rampant. I know 50 Cent, the rapper, is not who we turn to for our political advice, but I think the attitude that he expresses that, if you change the bail schedule so that only rich people get out on bail, so that it's no longer just rich people who can get out, but if you're assessed and you're found not to be a danger, you can get out pending trial. Or that if you don't advocate the death penalty, or if you don't advocate sentencing enhancement, that just means you want everyone to get out and you want to be what they used to call a thug hugger.
It is indeed a false narrative, as you note, Dom. There has been the death penalty for decades, and it had no real impact on the rise or fall of crime. No one has ever committed a death penalty type of crime thinking about the potential sentence before they decide to do whatever dastardly deed they do. So it is really remarkable that conservatives continue to focus on the penalties instead of the causes of crime and trying to address and attack the real causes, poverty, issues with the family unit, issues with education, issues with business and employment, the real causes of crime, as opposed to a knee-jerk reaction that just put them all back in jail and we will now be safer. That is not the truth. That is not how it's ever been, or will it always be.
Well, let's talk about enhancements, because I'm sure you've dealt with this for some of your clients over the years. This controversy over whether or not the so-called gang enhancements or sentencing enhancements, which can take a long sentence and make it a lot longer, whether or not they are effective in keeping people safer. I have, again, seen this online, and I've seen it, and I've heard it on the air, that the lack of support for enhancements allows dangerous criminals to roam the streets.
I reject that approach because there have been so many unfortunate occasions of people who have changed their lives around, or who have wanted to change their lives around, or who are trying to change their lives around, have been so impacted by testimony that is often sketchy, suggesting that past membership in a gang equals current membership in a gang, and justifies the imposition of really draconian enhancements in sentencing. There is a fundamental belief that I have that putting everyone in prison does not make our community safer. We've tried that approach, Dom, and it has not worked. And it is time that we explore other alternatives to simply locking people up for longer terms. And that is really the thinking behind not only the district attorney race, but Prop 36, as we've been discussing. The thought that by increasing the length of time in prison will make our community safe, and that is a fallacy that must be rejected.
And so explain the gang enhancements. How does that work? Or sentencing enhancements? I mean, what does it really do? It's on top of whatever the typical penalty would be for a particular crime, right?
That's correct. There are certain circumstances where the legislature has chosen to increase the potential penalties because of certain factors. Certain aspects of a criminal past can cause for enhancement. The use of a gun, for example, is another circumstance that can result in an enhancement. The active membership in a criminal street gang could result in enhancement. And all these enhancements do is simply add to the potential time that a person can serve in jail and remove them from their families and the community.
So it's not in lieu of a sentence. It's not that, oh, well, if you don't get an enhancement, you don't do time. It's just you don't do extra time. These egregiously longer and longer sentences that we are experiencing in California, and then we wonder why our prisons are constantly full, and we have this prison industrial complex business that seems to feed like a parasite off of our community.
And that is absolutely right, Dom. There is an industry of prisons, managing prisons, building prisons, and there has been conclusive thought that that is not the best way, and that new reforms have to be enacted to reduce the prison population. Rarely does someone go to prison and come out a better person. When you treat someone like an animal, they come out with those animal instincts. And those are the problems that we often see. It's not simply a matter of the enhancement being the sentence. It is an extra layer and level of time that is added on to a particular sentence that might be imposed given the crime that was committed.
Do those enhancements, do you think they target some groups more than others?
Enhancements are often used as a sort of bargaining chip to try to leverage against a potential defendant, because the threat of an enhancement can often add 10 or more years to someone's sentence. It is definitely targeted toward communities of color. That is definitely an issue and a problem that all fair-minded Californians should be concerned with.
And when you talk about the DA's office, I mean, we can talk about this when we come forward, but there initially was a revolt of district attorneys, many, DAs, prosecutors who work within the DA's office, some of whom ran against Gascon, some of whom had future plans to, certainly their union or association, in rebelling against Gascon's plans, which were pretty much the demands of the voters. And so how that plays out is with the apparent disarray. And I wonder, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Is that because of what I hear, that a lot of career prosecutors like to use those enhancements to pad their resumes and make themselves get promotions? Is it because of a conservative agenda versus a more progressive agenda, and that many of those folks are leftovers from the days of a Steve Cooley who mentored Jackie Lacey, who is both of whom are backing Gascon's opponent? Or is it more of an opportunist thing where I want to use these enhancements to move up the ladder? Or is it a philosophical thing? Or what do you make of that? What's your analysis of that conflict and how it's playing out in rejecting or enacting the wishes of LA County voters? That is next. Attorney Carl Douglas on KBLA Talk 1580.
More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelinos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV. Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit ca-smp-volunteer.org. Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees. Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Talking with attorney Carl Douglas. I know I packed a lot into that last question, talking about sort of the conflict we've seen in the district attorney's office here in LA with the folks that have been in that office for a long time opposing the agenda of the people, the requests of the people, the agenda of the elected district attorney, and their sort of love of these gang enhancements. So the question really has to do with, is it a philosophical thing? Is it a career opportunity thing? And how do you perceive it?
You know, Dom, the first thing that I want your listeners to remember and understand about the district attorney's race is George Gascon was a lifetime police officer. He's not some wide-eyed, progressive liberal who has been doing this his entire life. His life as a lawyer is, in fact, a second career. He spent the first 40 years of his life locking up people that have broken laws. He has seen the way the criminal justice system has worked from the inside. And he has seen that in many ways it has not worked in a way that is fair to black and brown people of this country. And he has figured out a program for change. Change is very difficult when you're dealing with an ingrained institution like a district attorney's office. People who have committed their careers and their lives to a particular mindset and a particular mentality and way of thinking. George Gascon has had the vision and the courage to say this is wrong. The ways we have been thinking is wrong, and I think a new approach to crime battling is appropriate. He put that vision in front of all of the voters of Los Angeles County, and he is now in the process of effectuating that vision. Reducing our reliance on cash bail is a positive thing, though there are a lot of black and brown bail bondsmen who are against that idea. Reducing mandatory minimums or choosing not to enforce the death penalty is a good thing, particularly when you understand that there have been more than 200 people who were exonerated after they were put to death, but that he faces a collection of opposition from within his own department is the price of change and reform. There are probably more than a dozen lawsuits that are currently going on right now from frustrated prosecutors who have been unwilling or unable to implement the changes that he thinks is best and that the people of this county have voted that they want to change. So what we are seeing is the pushback and the blowback, not only from conservatives in his office, but conservative mouthpieces when, in fact, he is doing everything that he promised to do when he ran for office 4 years ago. I believe his reforms are making this community better, and I believe that the people of Los Angeles County should give him another 4 years to continue his work on our behalf.
Speaking of the death penalty, which DA George Gascon has declined to prosecute, and he did that, again, the will of the people. This is what we asked for, why we voted him in. What will it take to get rid of it on a statewide level, federally? Like, how do we stop being one of these backward medieval countries that still practices the death penalty?
Dom, I don't think nationally there is the political will now to eliminate the death penalty for those that commit federal crimes. each state has their own individual laws concerning the death penalty for state crimes. And I dare say the majority of states still have the death penalty on its books, although it has not been implemented quite that frequently in the last 10 years. It is, I always say, change moves at the speed of an ocean liner, not a speedboat. And so changing the will of the country and understanding that the death penalty is not, in fact, the be-all and cure-all that many of its proponents argue it is, will take time. But with programs like yours continuing to confront and discuss the issue, hopefully listeners across this vast country of ours will listen, understand, and in time change.
And yeah, it seems like it's taking 100 years. Agreed about the political will. When it comes to DAs, that's a discretionary thing. It's not that they can change the law, but they can use their discretion as to whether or not they decide to charge the death penalty. What other things might we note from your perspective, your viewpoint, and what you see going on with criminal justice might inform us in November and in the way we're thinking about voting?
Well, Dom, whenever I go on your show, I always reinforce two pillars of citizenship. One is the importance that each of your listeners vote on Tuesday, November the 5th. But as important, when you get that summons in the mail for jury service, don't throw it away. Don't tuck it under your other papers, but answer that call, make those calls, and take part in the jury system. Black people have power, and that power is exercised at the ballot box and in the jury box.
And certainly we've seen with the case of Marcellus Williams and a number of huge national policy cases lately that judges do make a difference. It was the three Supreme Court justices appointed by Democrats that said they would have stayed the execution of Marcellus Williams on yesterday, and the supermajority of conservatives that chose to kill him.
And indeed, elections have consequences. The consequences that we are seeing with the Dobbs decision taking away the protections of Roe v. Wade, the challenges we're seeing now are the consequences of the 2016 election. So they do have consequences. It is important to vote. This is, in fact, the most important election in our lifetime.
Attorney Carl Douglas, thank you so much for spending the hour with me. Tell us how to find you if you want to be found.
My sister, I'm Carl Douglas on all platforms, ced.esq on Instagram. It is always a pleasure being on your show and talking with you and your listeners. Thank you so much, and have you back again soon, please, in the future.
I would love to. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And we will look for you on social media. I think I didn't know you were at ced.esq on Instagram. I'm at DiPrima Radio, DiPrima, and then radio. And of course, we are at KBLA 1580 on all platforms. You can also find him at Douglas Hicks Law. That's their website, douglashickslaw.com. If you're looking for an attorney, good luck convincing him to take your case. A lot going on this week. We will have a newly elected City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson joining us tomorrow on the show. Also want to remind you there is a reparations town hall meeting coming up Saturday at the True Vine Church in Inglewood. That is Saturday at 3 p.m. I have got to go. Tavis Smiley is up next. He's got a full lineup for you on this Wednesday. I'm going to quote Thurgood Marshall, speaking of justices. He says, "Where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out, because this is your country. This is your democracy. Make it, protect it, pass it on." That's my quote for today. Let's keep the conversation going on social media. I even have a YouTube channel under DiPrima Radio. but most of the chatter is on Instagram, where I spend my time. Again, DiPrima Radio or KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dominique DiPrima. History is now, and we are making it together. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.